Hello there, welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk and day 18 of my August alphabet challenge. We're on to the letter R today and you guys chose Rocketman. This film was released in 2019 and tells the life story of Elton John. It is produced by Elton John also, so he definitely had a heavy hand in this. So there's a lot of truth in it, although we have to bear in mind it's his truth, not everybody else's truth. Obviously, I don't know why you wouldn't know by now, but if you don't, August Alphabet Challenge, trying to raise money to build a women's refuge in Zambia. So please check out the links below, find out a bit more about that, donate if you can. But share this video if you can't. Share this video if you can as well. You know, the more the video gets shared, the better. But yeah, Rocketman. So this stars Taron Egerton as Elton John himself, and the film it plays as a sort of fantasy about reality. Really, it's basically the mandate that Elton John gave as producer for director Dexter Fletcher and another producer, Matthew Vaughn, was that he wanted his life storytelling, but he wanted it to be treated almost like a fantasy so that you could have surreal moments and whatnot and play with the narrative a bit. Now, the core of the story is still the truth, as I say, bearing in mind that's Elton John's truth. I'm sure there are, real life characters like John Reed who would have their own side of things or would put their own spin on it, whatever. But that's fine. This is his testament. This is his story, and this is the way he wants to tell it. This film was released just a year after Bohemian Rhapsody. Now, of the two, if you'd have slid both across the table to me on Blu-ray and I'd never seen them before, and you said which one are you going to watch, I'd have gone for Bohemian Rhapsody just because I'm a bigger Queen fan. I've liked Elton John's music, certainly his earlier stuff over the years. I'll fully admit there's plenty of songs that him and his writing partner have written that I really like. But I've never been that keen on the man, personally. Whenever I've seen him in TV and clips and whatnot, I've never quite warmed to him. There's a couple of reasons for that. There was a documentary way back, I can't remember if it was in the early 90s or late 90s, and it went behind the scenes in Elton John's house with him, and I remember seeing, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I remember seeing a clip of him chucking this hissy fit at his partner for losing a tennis match or something, and I just thought he was a spoilt child. And then I saw another documentary. I can't for the life of me remember what that was, but I remember there was a section in it where they went to visit Elton John's half brother, and this guy was living like a destitute bum, and he said his half brother was Elton John, and the way the program spun it was that, hey, isn't this, you got Elton John sitting pretty, all nice and rich, and look at his family. His blood here is destitute. So yeah, that's the way that particular piece of media span that story. Now, I gotta say, I think this film certainly changes a lot of my perspective with regards to Elton John. I think once you realise what his life has been, the background he comes from, he came from a home that, quite frankly, was not that loving at all. His father essentially left to start up a new family and didn't want really anything to do with him. So, going back to that documentary that I saw that tried to spin it as if Elton John was, not looking out for his family, I look at this film and I see his side of the story, and quite frankly, I can understand it. Why would he have anything to do with his half brother? He's nothing to him, really. There's somebody that he probably would have known at the end of the street better than his actual family. So things like that, the details that we see about his family history, his relations, really kind of humanizes Elton John, because Elton John is a larger than life character. If you don't know him on a personal level, which I don't, obviously, then the only way you do know him is through the media. And what you see in the media is this larger than life, blown up character, wears these ridiculous costumes, very flamboyant, and just plays good music. And yeah, there's not a lot to go on when building a character profile of this guy with regards to honesty. So seeing this film actually made me appreciate him a lot more. One, as an artist, and two, just as a human being. Like we see vulnerability here. We certainly see flaws, which is another thing that I liked about this film. Is it's not afraid to shy away from the flaws of him as a human being. There are times. Well, we see everything really. We get to see, the drugs, the bulimia, the addictive buying, the rocky relationships, the bad choices when it comes to choosing partners and whatnot, and him coming to a place towards the end of the film where he realizes that he's got to forgive certain people in his life, his family, and things like that, and take responsibility for himself, and no longer kind of allow certain things to influence him in a way that they once did. So I like that character arc. I like the journey there, because at the end of the day, this is a work of fiction. It's based on a true story. It is, but it's still a Hollywood narrative in that sense. You can't encapture a whole man's life within 2 hours. But as far as a job that any film can do, this does about as well. It does the best job you can. I've got to say, I think this does a better job than Bohemian Rhapsody. Now, I liked Bohemian Rhapsody. I thought it was a good film. Probably not one I'm going to watch again. I think the soundtrack to it certainly is what kind of pulled me in for most of it. And while it does have a really good central performance by Rami Malek, I think that Taron Egerton here does a lot more. I think the performance Taron Egerton gives in this film is a much more worthy performance. It's a much meatier performance, and I think he has to go to some darker places. He has to do some things physically and mentally and emotionally that personally I feel is harder. And even right down to the singing, that I think the performance that Egerton is giving, he's doing the singing as well. And yes, he's not on a par with Elton John in a vocal range, but he's there enough. It's there enough for us as an audience to never be put off by it. But we can buy into the character and believe it because it's his voice that's coming out of him. So yeah, I personally think it is a much better performance than the one that we got with Bohemian Rhapsody. That's no offense whatsoever to that's not a shot at Rami Malek. That's just down to the way in which the film was made, the script and all that. I think Egerton had a lot more to work with, but a lot more on his shoulders in that regard. Jamie Bell is really good, as well as Bernie Taupin. Now, Bernie Taupin is Elton John's writing partner, so he's the lyricist basically. So for most of Elton John's career, this guy has been with him writing his lyrics. Now I knew at one point that Elton John had someone who wrote his lyrics, and because I'm not a musician and I never quite understood the full extent of what it means to be a songwriter, I was always a bit kind of like, why does Elton John get so much credit and Bernie Taupin barely gets a mention when he's the one who's writing all the lyrics? But actually, like, when I watch this film, it gives me a better understanding of just what the relationship is there between the songwriter, lyricist, and the musician. And it is clear that Elton John is the musician, that he can take these lyrics that are just down on paper and he finds the melody for them. He's the one who structures them musically. and writes that music that goes underneath them and gives those lyrics life, essentially. So yeah, again, like I say, it made me appreciate Elton John's talent as a musician a lot more than perhaps I did before seeing the film. Like I say, I've never really warmed to Elton John as a man when I've seen him, but I think this film has gone a long way to break certain barriers down and make me understand him on a more human level, and look past all the garish costumes and the crazy antics and whatnot to see where he's come from. And at the end of the day, we were all children once, and that's my takeaway from this film, is that we were all children once. We all started out on this innocent path, and I, for one, had the blessing of having amazing parents who I knew loved me, and that set me on a particular course in life where, yeah, I've had hardships, but I've had a certain level of security that comes from always knowing that I'm loved. And Elton John never had that, and there's plenty of people like him that never had that. And when you see the course that his life went on, the fame, the fortune, and still really deep down inside, he was always just this guy looking for love that he never got at home, so he had to find it elsewhere, but he ended up looking in all the wrong places. So yeah, I thought it was a really great film. There's some stuff in there that I didn't really need to see, but I understand that's part of John's life, and it would be disingenuous to not show that. And in some regards, that's where Bohemian Rhapsody kind of put a foot wrong as well, because it didn't. We know that Freddie Mercury had a somewhat hedonistic life in some respects, but they kind of shied away from that to keep it more of a family-friendly kind of movie to an extent. Whereas here, they say, no, you know what, this is who he was, these are the things he did, we're going to show him, but we're also going to show where that comes from. Why does a man make those choices? Why does a man go down those particularly dark paths? So yeah, I think there's a redemptive kind of quality towards the end of the film as a result of that, with him wrestling with who he is as a person, as an artist, as a human being. So yeah, really good film. Dexter Fletcher does an excellent job directing. The pairing of him and Taron Egerton is clearly a good one, because what they did with Eddie the Eagle as well was a really great job. Very underrated film, really good British drama. If you haven't checked out Eddie the Eagle, check that out. But yeah, Rocketman, definitely check that out as well. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Like I say, any film that can take a real life character that I'm not that keen on and actually make me warm to him in some way has done something right. So yeah, 4 out of 5 from me. But what about you? Have you seen Rocketman? And if so, what were your thoughts on Elton John going into the film? And did the film change those thoughts for you once you'd seen it? Yeah, leave your comments down below. Let me know your thoughts. Do check out those links in the description box for the August Alphabet Challenge. Find a bit more out about it. Now, I am taking a day off tomorrow because it's Sunday. I'm not doing Sundays for the August Alphabet Challenge. So I will be back on Monday with the letter S. And I believe I am reviewing Snowpiercer. Looking at the poll from that, Snowpiercer has steamed ahead. So clearly people want me to watch that one. So yeah, Monday I'll be back with Snowpiercer. But until then, cracking.